I'm Justin. I'm an academic librarian at an R1 institution, and my pronouns are he and they.
I'm Sadie. I work IT at a public library, and my pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Jay. I'm a cataloging librarian, and my pronouns are he, him.
And we're back. We moved. We're done. We're doing an episode in our new place in the same room. It's confusing, but we'll figure it out.
The band is back together.
That's right. We had a test run of recording, but that was in Discord, and now we're in Zencastr again, and it can't do all the same stuff, and it's confusing.
It might reduce the amount of times that I blatantly interrupt other people all the time, because I have to basically keep myself muted when I'm not talking, just to make sure that me and Justin don't get picked up on each other's microphone, even though we've got noise gate and everything on, you know. I'm loud and annoying.
I have my noise gate on so loud that it's skipping words for me, and Jay was still bleeding through. When he gets excited, he starts yelling.
It's okay. The amount of times that my wife has been like, "You're shouting," when I'm just like saying something emphatically, I'm like, "Oh, sorry."
I have to do that when Jay's 2 inches away from me. I go, Jay, you're yelling. It's like ordering at the drive-in. Yeah, I'll have this thing on. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I have nothing to say in my own defense.
So did everyone see the 2 different commencement speakers? Because graduations have just happened. If someone's going to the back catalog or listening a few weeks late, every once in a while, someone will be in the Discord and be like, yeah, I'm just listening to the episode from like 3 years ago. Do you remember this thing you were talking about? Like, not a bit.
I have gone through so many med changes since then. I don't remember most things.
I've had somebody in my personal life be like, "Oh yeah, I was listening to this and like this extremely niche topic you guys on," and I was like, "That was 2 years ago, buddy, and that wasn't even my like thing." So like, yeah, no, I remember shit about that episode. Sorry, glad you enjoyed it.
Look, there's extensive notes in most episodes, so if it's not in the note description, I don't know if there's anything else we can go through. We try and include everything right away, but. Anyway, 2 different commencement speakers. I'm going to cut in the audio here because it's incredibly funny of people getting booed because the university's called someone in to like talk about the future. And sometimes these people are just like, they either work with AI but they do so in a way where they're not used to people getting mad at them.
The rise of artificial intelligence is the next industrial revolution. Only a few years ago, AI was not a factor in our lives.
And then on Friday, grads at University of Arizona booed former Google CEO Eric Schmidt.
In the years that after I graduated, no one sat down and resolved to build a technology that would polarize democracies and unsettle a generation of young people. That was not our plan, but it happened. There is a fear in your generation that the future has already been written, that the machines are coming, that the jobs are evaporating.
So one commencement speaker was like some real estate lady. I don't remember which university it was at.
I think it was University of Southern Florida.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Was it USF or UCF?
It was one of the Floridas.
Yeah. I think it was UCF, which I think is even bigger, which is funny because famously people don't graduate from there. It's called You Can't Finish. It's a party school. So I know so many people who went there for like a year and didn't go back to college. I've been to it. Someone was like, "Oh, I was a faculty member at UCF. Have you seen their science building?" I'm like, I've seen the inside of the dorms when I was in college and went to parties. I don't know anything about UCF, but one was at Arizona State, which is also a massive university. And the guy was a little more used to getting booed. And so he like turned on the crowd like a bad stand-up comedian, which is the one I think I'll cut it in both, but they're both extremely funny. People not really getting why telling them that you just did all this work to individually try and game the labor market by getting an education that other people won't have, and that investment isn't really going to work for you. On the other hand, living in a new Gilded Age means the inevitable resurgence of the IWW, wandering into people's towns and getting into fights with the sheriff.
We can only hope, right?
Justin, why are you holding a box cutter?
I don't know. I have box cutters for cutting. You're constantly asking me why I have a knife, and it's like, why else would I have a knife for cutting? Anyway, all right. So we had an idea for an episode, or Jay had the idea, which was, what about all of the episodes that we have never gotten around to finishing? So there's some that I still want to do, but can talk about, but I've been yapping. So Jay, why don't you do one of yours first?
So if you're in our Discord, you've probably seen us talk about this, and we probably mentioned it in other episodes, but we're sort of like a anti Little Free Libraries podcast. And I would like to do an episode on why, because I think it confuses people, especially as the like mutual aid is good, community swaps, free things are good, like sharing resources, not just throwing things away, reduce, reuse, recycle, all that good stuff. That's good, but I'm kind of hostile to negative neutral on Little Free Libraries, and it always surprises like non-librarians when I'm like, Little Free Library, like people are always like, whoa, like you? I'm like, they're bad. And I think like a part of the episode would be about like talking about sort of like the nonprofit industrial complex and how it relates to libraries. But also, this is not even related to libraries. But like the fact that you have to pay to register your Little Free Library to be a Little Free Library, and people are like, whoa, you can't just set up a stupid box in your front yard in your bougie suburb community and put your old cookbooks in there. You can't just do that. I'm like, you can, but it's not a Little Free Library TM. And obviously, we would have to talk into like how these things are like part of surveillance capitalism as well. Like all of the stories of like particularly Black people having the cops called on them just for using Little Free Libraries, which to me seems, I don't know, counterintuitive. But and when Black people use them, they're stealing. Don't you see? And then I think this would like lead into a larger discussion on like sort of why these things exist. Because people say like, oh, well, they're free. I'm like, well, your libraries. But if you are homeless, like if you don't have a permanent address or like a shelter whose address you can use, can you get a library card, right? Like the inherent anti homeless hostility that most public libraries operate under. So it's like, okay, fair point. But then also the sort of like, we have made the physical book, paper and glue, right? This like sacred object that people are afraid to throw away, or they like don't know how to recycle it. But like this leads into like donations, or oh, I'm going to give this to a secondhand bookstore, or doesn't anyone want my crap that I don't want anymore? And just how Little Free Libraries are like sort of helping to, or part of this like Ouroboros of like book guilt, I guess, of like where it's a moral failing if you throw a book in the trash. Like try to recycle the paper, I guess. But like, I don't know, you can throw a book away. It unless it's like, I don't know, if you have some like rare fucking copy of something and it's the only copy and the human race will die without it, which what doesn't exist.
You're that guy in what was that movie that was like all freaked out about the Gutenberg Bible, like
the
clutching it
fucking
to
Day
his
After
chest?
Tomorrow Gutenberg
Yes.
Bible, dude. Yeah, unless you got the fucking New York Public Library's Gutenberg Bible, like you could probably throw a book away. So like that's like I would want the episode to be about that, because I love an episode where we get to bitch about something, where we just get to be haters. I find it very fun. I love being a fucking hater, and I love being a righteous hater. Like we can spill the tea, but when we're right, that makes it better.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my Little Free Libraries idea. We'll do it one day. I just have to like get more info.
Yeah, I do have the weeding episode that I want to do, because I was doing so much weeding at my last job, because a lot of librarians are kind of hoarders, which is kind of a problem at every library. There's a lot of people who don't want to get rid of books. There's like the book is sacred object. In fact, today in the Discord, someone was like, oh, I went to work and there was a garbage bag full of moldy books waiting for me outside that someone left for us as a donation. which was like really cuts out the middleman of what I've said, which is like they're just giving you the books to throw away for them. Like you are like Audrey came up with this thing, which was like librarians are sin eaters for the community, which is we will take the books and throw them away for you because other people can't handle the sin of throwing away the book.
Well, and somebody else in the Discord was like, "Yeah, my supervisor changed my schedule because there was one person who kept walking by right after I had weeded and thrown out a bunch of books, and instead of just being like, it's fine, they just changed their schedule so they would be throwing them away when the person was not around to bitch at them about throwing out books, which is just ridiculous to me."
Yeah. It's and it's funny because I mentioned this like when I started my new job again at a big university. We were planning on a renovation, which is now delayed, partly because they didn't have a plan. And so they were like, we got all these books that we have to like throw away. And I'm like, let me add them. I'll throw them. I'll put them in the dumpster myself. I've done it. I spent a lot of time going back and forth to the dumpster at my last job. I think I broke the last dumpster because I put so many books in it. Because then our dumpster disappeared for a while, and they were like, "Yeah, the dumpster's like dangerously falling apart." So I was like, "I'll do
Oops.
it," and they're like, "Well, we don't want someone getting mad that the books are being thrown away." I'm like, "Fuck them,"
Close
who
the
cares?
fucking dumpster.
Like, do you know how many times, like, at multiple libraries where I've worked, when they've done the dumpster full of books, they've had news articles written about them because people find the dumpster full of books. They're like, this library is throwing away books it could have given away for free or recycled. And it's like, okay, then dumpster dive. Have fun.
Mhm.
Like, if you want something in there, be my guest. Like, ideally have a sort of maybe if there's like a local like secondhand bookshop that can be like, we want these books, we don't want these books. Like, if you can do a partnership with them, great. But yeah, I don't know. People
Well,
fucking
and
yeah.
that can get tricky because it's taxpayer money. So there might be some sort of regulations or standards around how you can dispose of things. Because we have that problem in the IT department with like computers and monitors and stuff. And it's like, it still works, but it's like out of warranty. It's, hard to recycle, but you can't just throw it out because it's electronics. And then it's just like, but we can't just like be like, okay, everybody grab a monitor and take it home, or donate it to some place that uses that kind of stuff, because it's all public money.
Yeah, that's not been a concern for me, but it is like they're like, why don't you just give the books away? It's like we try to give the books away. Like someone has to come and load up a car full of books, and there's only so many like 70-year-old women with free time who can lift 50-pound boxes of books and put them in their car. Well, I put them in their car, but then they've got to have someone to help them unload the car on the other end of it. Like it's like, try and give it to like a secondhand bookstore or whatever. Like, yeah, are they going to come and pick it up? Are we going to take it to them? Like, there's an amount. Like, we were giving away books to like some kind of correctional facility, like halfway across the state, and they were taking kind of like a bunch of stuff that I would have just thrown away because it's probably in too bad a shape for them to keep anyway because it was probably too moldy or whatever. But they were like, no, leave everything for us. Don't throw anything away. And so my boss like kept holding on to it, and I was like, this stuff is going. This stuff is leaving this room one way or another. Like they're coming to get it or it's going in the dumpster. So I cleared out, just like years and years of backlog. Like there were offices full of books. And by the time I left, there was like a system for when a donation came in, if we were keeping it, if it was going to Better World or if it was going in the dumpster. I'm sure those shelves are going to be full in no time, but hopefully I instilled a culture of them throwing them out a little bit. But yeah, there's also so many books that have to go, and it's like, who wants this? I don't know, 1970s D-list book in its own time that never took off about the the blank child word we don't say anymore in special education. It's like you could, am I going to donate that to Goodwill? It's like no, it's just, you're throwing it away. The slur child. So yeah, there's books that just are done. They're done with. Let them go away. We just did an episode where we talked about library science on another podcast. And one of the things I didn't get the chance to talk about was part of like the 5 laws of library science. Like part of the library being a living organism is like it needs to ingest, but also expel as a living organism. Like it inhales and exhales, it eats and excretes. Like there's stuff that has to leave the library to be healthy. it takes in and it takes out. There's like a back and forth. So yeah. On that note, I also wanted to like I still have like the Bataille episode that I want to do on like library sustainability. Cause I still kind of like want to write an article about Bataille to talk about like this like cradle to cradle problem of like we go through all the resources of making a book. The book has its lifespan and then what happens to it. And so there are people who have written about Bataille and like ecology because when he wrote The Accursed Share, it's very much like we get all this energy from the sun. Plant life took over the world. Then there's all this excess energy. Then things are eating these things. So there's always this like an extra amount of energy in the system that needs to like live and die to use up the energy that we're getting. Like that's just kind of the way ecosystems work. So people have taken that to apply to like manufacturing, which you could do to talk about books, like books coming in, books going out, like cradle to cradle manufacturing. So things are being made, they live out their life, and then they go into being made again. So there's a whole ecology there of libraries that you can talk about.
And I think that's like particularly relevant because like, and I think I've mentioned this before, but like one of my main criticisms as an anti AI person from like a like a Marxist perspective, right? Like one of my major criticisms of a lot of the like argument against AI is like the like yes, it's terrible for the environment, but when and like more so than most other things, I'm not trying to be like it's all bad, but when you like are you looking at other sustainability things in your library? Like what other like things are relying on data centers or like server power or like what are you throwing away? How much plastic are you using? Is it necessary? Can you like all of this stuff is part of the sustainability of how a library functions. And if your one thing where you care about the environment is AI, to me that's not a very strong arguing point against it, even if it is correct.
Yeah, and also there's this thing that like Hagen talked about when we had him on, and he's been talking about more, which is like this trap of capitalist thinking where like there's no one single capitalist who can be like, oh God, we're working towards the like the cliff of climate change, but none of them individually can say like, oh, we should stop. The only thing they can do is continue to live under the same capitalist logic, which libraries have a unique opportunity because they have an anti-capitalist logic. They can. They don't currently, but they can. They can have that usufructian property relation stuff that seriously wrong people talk about, which is like you have the right to use something, but you don't have the right to destroy something. And so, and if we think about libraries as, I guess you could think of them as like an individual trying to go green, but you apply that to like an industry. So you think of the library as a living organism, but also as kind of like one organism, and it is trying to live sustainably. It gives you like all these frameworks to try and approach like using something and not having the right to destroy it, planning on what you're going to create and what you're going to destroy and what you'll create out of that. Like there's just a lot of things that you could use to talk about the library as its own ecosystem and then apply that model to other things in society like manufacturing and tool shares. And like especially living in a city now, there's so many small things that people try to do like, hey, here's a tool share. Hey, here's like, because no one has room to hold a ladder in their house. That's why the landlord left it in our apartment because she doesn't want to put it in her fucking apartment. I should be charging storage rent to her. This is not your storage unit, lady. Leaving all her shit. Don't throw away that microwave. Don't throw away my shitty little $30 microwave. The other tenants like it. We're here for 17 months. We have a 17-month lease. What do you mean the other tenants? It's just
Other
us.
tenants.
She said this to us.
Jesus fucking Christ. It's a
She just listens to this
microwave.
old lady who doesn't know what's happening.
Which is, I guess, useful in some ways, but it's also annoying. We've got like a little Tom and Jerry whole thing. Like, there's like a Tom and Jerry thing happening in our kitchen right now because there's like a little like extremely like half circle shaped mouse hole, and our cat is just sitting in front of it 17 hours a day waiting for another mouse to fucking try it because he got the first one he saw. He's like, I fucking wish you would. I wish you would poke your... It's just Tom and Jerry shit happening in our house. It was extremely funny to me how much it activated the cat. And he's just like, I am on it. I am the Terminator. There is no mouse that is going to come into this house again.
I was bred for a purpose, and I remember it instinctually right now.
The mouse like tried to get away, and then Arthur fucking got it. Like the mouse tried to make an escape after Arthur had already swiped at it once and got it immediately. He did a good job. But him and the bunny get on great. He's doing a good job.
Yeah, he's scared of her.
Yeah, he's scared of the bunnies. Oh, what a big yawn. Yeah.
Good job, Arthur.
And everybody was proud of you.
Sometimes cats and rabbits get along, but usually it's helpful if the rabbit is bigger than the cat and heavier.
And old and scary.
Mm-hmm. That's the battalion and the library sustaining one. There's also like, as far as philosophers go, I did want to, once I found out that C.S. Hamelink was still alive, he wrote this article in the 70s called An Alternative to News, where he basically saw Twitter coming, but he imagined it would work in like a different way. But he pretty much exactly kind of got it and the kind of media ecosystem in now. And then I found out he was still alive and that one of our friends might have a way to contact him, but he's very old and like doesn't really do anything anymore. He's like an emeritus professor who just putters around. And it's like, oh, well, I'll just leave him alone, I guess. But that's one guest wish I would think would be very funny to have on. Bring on this 90-year-old communications professor who wrote a paper that only I am obsessed with. I saw it cited like once in grad school, and I was like, wait a minute.
Might be very validating for him. You never know.
Yeah, maybe. It's not an easy article to get either. I've had to like ask other people to get me access to it every time I lose my copy. I hope I still have one around somewhere. But yeah, it's weird stuff. Jay, what's the faceting episode?
So this is inspired by a recent change that Library of Congress is rolling out. So in the metadata world, a lot of like older school OPACs and the way that a lot of them still function is like if you have subject headings, if they have subdivisions, like they have a geographic subdivision or like a freeform topical thing. So for example, they're changing a lot of like the Indians of North America things to be like indigenous peoples subdivided North America, for example. Or you could have like AI subdivision topic about that, right? And this is how you sort of get granular within subject headings, right? And in a lot of catalogs, that string is treated as like a unique thing. So just searching for like indigenous people, like will get you all of the indigenous peoples of whatever, but you won't necessarily like if you're trying to like update your headings, like it recognizes this whole string as one thing, right? And then OCLC introduced it like the fast headings, which is like faceted something subject terms, where it basically breaks down subject headings and their subdivisions into separate terms. So instead of like indigenous people, North America, cultural norms or whatever, I'm just making up subject headings off the top of my head. Like each of those is its own heading. And the idea of this is that it's like faster and less complicated, but also in a lot of non-traditional OPAC discovery systems, you don't necessarily like browse by subject and collocation, you facet, right? It's like a form of filtering, but like you would facet by sort of like the topmost. Like you can't really facet when subdivisions are included, for example. And also faceting or subdivisions are kind of hard in a linked data environment just because of the way things are linked together works a little differently in a linked data environment than it maybe does in traditional like subjects, right? So since the Library of Congress has officially moved to BibFrame, it's happening. They're in BibFrame now. They're all linked data. They are starting to, if you are a cataloger and you are working with Connection or like another OCLC product, right? You're going to start seeing that a lot of records that are from Library of Congress or that they have touched, there's going to be things interjected into them that makes them more BibFrame compliant to help crosswalk. And one of these things is that in DLC records and also in like Library of Congress subject headings, they are getting rid of form subdivision. So often, say you have a kid's book that's about pumpkin. The subject heading will be like pumpkins and then subdivision, juvenile fiction, right? because like there are ways that you can indicate the audience in a mark record, but not all OPACs or ILSs index that in a way that is consistent or makes sense. So often this like juvenile fiction or juvenile literature, or there's some like rare books ones that are kind of specific as well, like this form subdivision, even though there's like a 655, which is the genre or form terms where you can put stuff there. Like a lot of the time there's only like there's not a genre or form term in the 655 like in that vocabulary that is the same as what was in the subfield V for juvenile fiction or whatever was there. And so there's this debate on like what's the best approach for subject access in discovery layers and more modern OPACs. Like, does faceting work? Does it not work? Because like in theory, I agree with removing form subdivisions from subject headings. The subject headings are about aboutness. They're not about form. But we didn't really have another way to put that. And that's what the 655 was supposed to do. But then the Library of Congress wasn't fucking developing that vocabulary. And so like all of these holes exist where you could like maybe not put it in a subfield B and do a 655. But then sometimes they're different. Sometimes they do different things. Sometimes there's just not an equivalent. So that's like a current discussion happening in OCLC Cat and AutoCat and all these other cataloger nerd listservs of like, is it bad to get rid of this? And what is the value of a faceted approach to discovery and retrieval versus a non-faceted approach?
Yeah. It just reminds me of reading about Ranganathan's colon classification, where he tried to turn the classification system into a faceted system because he was a mathematician first. And so every classification in like Indian academic catalogs is now like 5 subject headings in a row. So everything has like 5 call numbers separated by colons.
Well, that's not faceting. That's the opposite of faceting. That's doing subdivisions.
Well, they're manual facets.
Yeah, but is it like one string?
Yes.
Then that's not faceting. Faceting is that they were all separate. Like if a search system could use them all individually, that's faceting.
No, but it is still faceting. It's you're taking the all the things that are faceted are then put into a call number. So it's like if you did a faceted search, exported the search, and then that became the book's call number. So all those things are still facets. They're still technically facets. It's just manual.
I would have to see it because that's not making sense to me. I'm like, wait, what?
Just Google colon classification. It doesn't make sense to do. It was overly deterministic when he did it too, but he was mad that the Dewey Decimal System didn't work for like Indian subject headings. So
Dewey Decimal doesn't work for most things, I would argue.
mm-hmm. I found out recently because there's this Tumblr blog that's like Dewey Decimal whatever. So whenever people like say something on Tumblr, they'll just give it a Dewey Decimal classification. Let me see if I can find it so people can find it.
I want to follow this, please.
I was so bad at Dewey. That was like in my cataloging class. That was like the thing I was bad at. I could get Library of Congress classification, but trying to assign Dewey numbers, I was like, what the fuck is this? I did not get it.
It's called Your Dewey Decimal Number Is. But that's how I found out that cladistic classifications like marsupial and things like that have their own specific Dewey Decimal number, which is so fucking fraught because those classifications get reorganized all the time in phylogenetics. Like whole groups of animals get categorized into different clades because you're dealing with like its own classification system. So now you've mapped Dewey Decimal onto another classification system, which is extremely fraught, which is like Linnaean taxonomy. So that terrifies me that there are people like, you should not classify that deeply in Dewey Decimal because then like, what do you do when like that changes? You would have to recatalog all this stuff. It's like the same thing we're having at my current job where there's a lot of things that are like still in LLCR, AACR2 that like technically need to change because it's causing some problem for us.
Embrace the mixed catalog. It will set you free. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Primo sucks.
I mean, well, thinking about Dewey, like, wasn't the whole point of Dewey to be like kind of shallow? Like, I always hear about like, you know, the depth of a public library, breadth over depth and then depth over breadth for like why would you want to get that specific with a Dewey Decimal number?
For all its faults, like, this is why I think LC works better for larger collections because the range of subjects and the way that you cutter by, like, title instead of, like, subject makes it way less complicated to catalog things and still have unique call numbers. Cuttering is great. Everything should use cutters. It's awesome.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Cutter.
Thank you, Mr. Cutter. Literally, that was his name.
Yeah, it is not because it cut the number. It's named after a dude named Cutter. And page rankings are not because they're web pages. It's named after Larry Page.
Didn't know that last bit.
Yeah, the Larry Page ranking system. This is my father, Mr. Website. But yeah, that terrifies me that Dewey Decimal can get that granular because like I've had to go through those, like when I've had to catalog, like give something an LC number because it was like some self-published book and I just had to give it a number and I had to flip through those huge books that every library has in the corner somewhere of the LC numbers. And it's like, it's incredibly granular sometimes and has all these tables that you have to learn how to use, especially for like literature, because literature is crammed into like one tiny range. And so you have to like do literature and then the person's name.
But it's the second letter of their last name, not the first. Stephen King's
God.
cutter starts with an I, for example.
Yeah, they have like set cutters and stuff. It's very confusing. It's very annoying. Luckily, that's not a problem when you're the one having to do it, because if there's not already a Library of Congress one, it's usually like a very small book that doesn't really matter what classification number you give it.
No one does shelf listing anymore. No one gives a fuck about like making sure no two things have the same. But no one. Oh, we have to make sure this is in the right space on the shelf. Well, no one cares.
It's just got to be in the right section. Also, like I was explaining that as an e-resources person, like classification numbers do not even matter because most of the things that I deal with don't have them because they're not physical items. So there's no classification number for, as far as like classification numbers really matter. It's just where physically in the building does the book live. So like you can have your own weird library, like you can make your own library run off any classification system you want, because as long as it's consistent for your library, you can go and retrieve the book from where it's supposed to be in your catalog. But that's why I also thought that like colon classification is very strange, because you're doing subject heading stuff with something that ultimately is like a retrieval system for just where does the book live on the shelf. So maybe that's another episode of like classification. This classification. We'll talk about faceting and classification.
Yeah, because I think that would, because there's like Dewey Decimal like ripoffs that are like base 10 or whatever that people use in personal knowledge management. They're like decimal based indexing and sorting systems that I find overly complicated. But like, yeah, in the PKM space, like people who use Obsidian and stuff like that fucking love this shit. They love their own little Dewey Decimal knockoff system. And I'm like, why? Zettelkasten makes more sense because of what a Zettelkasten is doing. But even then, you can get too ridiculous with it. It's just about linking things. Anyway.
You can also just use tags. You can literally use like hashtags in Obsidian. You can just be like, hashtag my twig. Hashtag my twig. There it is.
Thank you for that.
We just kept doing
so
that
much
for like weeks after the like. So this is my jar. It's got some holes in the top so I can breathe, and I got some leaves, and there's my twig. Hashtag my twig. Kept doing that because in the Frankenstein movie, he like gets given a leaf. He gives a leaf as a present. The monster does, the Frankenstein, and we just kept going. Hashtag my leaf.
Hashtag my leaf.
One that I have been trying to do for like 2 years now is xenophobia in Skullcom. It's like fear of China.
Yeah, SINO, not ZENO.
Yeah, my accent, it doesn't work on that word very well. I guess sinophobia. I guess you could do it that way. But there's like a constant thing in scholarly communications of like we're trying to do openness, but there's, because the Cold War never ended, it just kind of went on hiatus long enough for Fukuyama to write that dumb book, and then it started up again on September 11th. We just kind of still need there to be like a global power we're like flexing at all the time, and that's just China. And so there's this constant like China's going to overtake us in publishing, which is like, yeah, there's more people and they invest in their public infrastructure, and the US empire is kind of shooting itself in the foot every day. What did you think was going to happen when you dismantle your university and your research grant system?
I would also say, like, related to the xenophobia in scholarly communications is like a fear and mistrust of India, because I feel like a lot of the like predatory open access journal stuff that you get warned about is like paper mills in India or elsewhere in the global south, sometimes in Africa. I don't, from different countries, but a lot of times it's like, oh, cheap knockoff, fake scammy journals in India that are messaging you, like, and emailing, grad students to be like, pay us $1 million to publish. Like, I feel like the sort of like distrust of India and therefore like not taking Indian scholars and stuff seriously. I feel like that's a problem too.
There's also like the research data like sharing and the fear of like, because so much research is like grant funded and so much of that is like coming from the Department of Defense or other federal agencies. It's like, oh, is China going to use our research for free? It's like the free rider problem. Like, oh, if we make this stuff free for anyone, not only can it be institutions that don't pay for it, but it could be our enemy countries. And so we have to keep knowledge hidden because that's how like we're going to win the not war with China that we don't have. Which if we just keep putting, here's the thing, let's make Trump president for life, but every week he has to go back to hang out in China until he becomes fully Chinese. Because he loves a strong man and he loves a guy who won't suck up to him, and he will just become a Maoist if you leave him alone long enough with President Xi. So I'm thinking this is how we finally, because if America was going to become any type of communist, it would become Maoist. Like it's just got all the pieces. Like it's got like the love of the countryside. Every conservative wants to send people out to the countryside to go farming. It's
We
got
love
the
guns.
nationalism.
Maoists love guns. That's the kind of leftism where you get guns again, is Maoism.
We love doing backyard redneck shit, which like the American peasant, the Chinese peasant and the American redneck are just like two halves of the same coin. We just need to get them together. It's the redneck Maoist is just a powerful energy, and I think it's the way forward.
I'm just picturing those like propagandas of like where was like the Chinese and the Russian like dude, and it looks very homoerotic.
The gay Soviet propaganda, yeah.
Yeah, but instead it's like like the American redneck and the Chinese peasant. Like
it's just a guy with like a White Claw and like a Marlboro hat, and like the guy who does the tornado beer drinking, like holding hands. And they both have like beers in their hands that are like one's in a can and one's in a bottle doing a tornado. Someone please make that.
incredible.
I
just feel like this is they're both wearing overalls. Yeah, it's a powerful energy.
And then we all shoot our landlord.
Yeah.
Like while doing NASCAR shit.
Oh, Chinese people love fucking NASCAR shit. Have you seen those big bowls in the ground where they put pickup trucks in there and they drive around in the bowl real fast and shit? Like I'm just saying, like America needs to become Maoist. Like it's the only kind of communism we would tolerate, and then we would also have a bunch of trains. But anyway, we fear what we might love too much. But yeah, the thing Jay was mentioning about the fake science industry. There's like a Financial Times article I have in here about China's fake science industry. I think I have stuff in here from like 2022. That's how long I've been trying to do this article, like this episode. It's just like doesn't come together in terms of like what to point at, because it's also slapdash. Like every once in a while, like a Chinese scientist will try and smuggle their research data to China, and then they get like arrested, or they just flee to China and like don't come back. And it's usually like they were working on a cure for cancer. And it's like, yeah, let them take the research data to China. They'll probably cure cancer. Like they're not going to do it here. So it's interesting. Like when we were hiring someone for a research data management position, one of the reasons I didn't hire her is like she had been gotten to by one of these people, and she was like repeating it during the interview of like data security for research and things like that. And I was like, you've been given cop brain. I'm sorry, it's terminal. Like this is not the attitude to bring to this job. Like And it wasn't just me, it was like the person not on my team who noticed this. And she was like, that's a weird thing to be hung up on and is not what this position is for. It was someone who's coming from a compliance job. And so they saw this job as like compliance. And it's like, no, the compliance is actually not good. Like, we're here to make it easier to do it. We're not here to force people to do it or keep them in the rules. So they just didn't understand the job, which is not their fault because we were going to be hiring someone out of the gate anyway. So it's like, do I hire someone who doesn't understand the job but has more practical experience, or do I hire someone straight out of grad school who is just a blank slate for me to write on? It's like either way, I'm going to be redoing this work. So it didn't really matter who I picked. So I just went for the blank slate rather than having to undo that. This is one that I haven't been able to do because I can't get a guest because no one wants to come on for me to make like fun of what they do, which is the limits of information literacy. Because I want to talk about like how information literacy kind of doesn't work or the ways in which it does, but like the way most librarians understand it, it doesn't work. So like, because we keep applying this information literacy paradigm to like other things, and that's how we get like AI literacy. And it's like this very shallow understanding of information literacy that kind of permeates.
You know how it works and what it's doing and when it's bad. Literacy. It's like that's not what information literacy is actually.
Yeah, a lot of it has to do with like a political understanding, which never comes up. Or like the people who I really like, who I want to bring on are people who understand this, but I want to like do a critique of the liberalism of it, or like we can educate our way out of these political problems. Like you can individually educate yourself out of this problem. It's like, no, you can't. You can't really do information literacy. You have to do agitation and consciousness raising. You have to do stuff like this show because like you can learn about the ecological impacts of AI, but like, what is that? If you don't learn how to talk to your community about it or organize, like, what good does it do? It's like,
You can't just be a scold.
yeah. Or the same problem of like going to college and learning about things, but not learning like how to like negotiate with your boss or how to join a union, like the things that would actually give you power in the post AI world. And it's like, yeah, that's the thing I have about information literacy. And it's just hard getting a guest who like is really into information literacy, but also is willing to put up with me clearly going to be talking shit about it. But maybe now that I've explained the idea, someone will listen to it and say, "Hey, I'll talk about it." But
Come be a hater with us.
We love when people come on and be haters. A fun one I wanted to do that I think would be a good way to talk about broader issues of like thinking about archival stuff and preservation, but like the ways that culture is preserved is I wanted to do an episode on the movie The Fall, directed by Tarsim from 2006, the one with Lee Pace, right? For those who haven't seen it, it's this really cool sort of like surrealist film. It's the same person who did the costumes on the Francis Ford Coppola Dracula movie in the 90s. It's the same person. And it's about this little girl in like 1911, 1917, something like that, early, who is, I believe she's Roma, and she breaks her arm while picking oranges. And so she's in this hospital in LA because she's a migrant worker with her family. And she meets this film stuntman named Roy, who is sort of paralyzed from the waist down after botching a stunt. And he's trying to get more morphine because he wants to kill himself because his girl left him for the lead actor. And so he starts telling her this fantastical story and then be like, hey, I'm not feeling good. In order to remember the story, I need you to bring me more pills so that she can get morphine for him. And the way when he's telling her the story, it's we see what she's imagining. And it gets very Wizard of Ozzy, where like the people in the hospital are also the people in this like story within a story, like the actors are. And one of the cool things about it is all of it's like shot out, like it's all like quote unquote on location. Like it's not really using sound stages and stuff. Like they film a lot in Asia, in South Asia, in Western Asia, I believe in parts of North Africa and the Middle East, but like all over the world, right? And it's gorgeous. It's like Lawrence of Arabia levels of like epicness. It's beautiful. And there's this one little very quick montage where they're looking for they're like reading a map and following the map, and it's like very quick editing, like every single second is like a different shot, right? And in this one sequence, I think is every single UNESCO World Heritage Site. And they physically went there just to get it on film for like half a second. So like there's one where the Eiffel Tower is there and like all these wonders of the world, right? But they're all caught on film and preserved permanently. And I wanted to do an episode on that because it's like how cool, because like Tarsem did that on purpose. He wanted to capture all of these cultural sites on film so that they would be preserved forever as long as the film exists. Like as a act of cultural preservation, they were put into this movie, right? And I thought that was dope, and I thought that was cool. And I remember reading that when I was, because this was really my favorite film for years, and so I read everything I could about it. And then when I went back to like, oh, I think this would be a cool idea for an episode because like it got like a re-release in theaters a couple of years ago. It got like a new restoration, like a 20-year restoration or something. And I was like looking at the IMDb and I was looking at the Wikipedia, and that information's not there anymore about like, oh, this is preserved, like all of the whatever World Heritage sites are now preserved in this film. Like, so now I'm like, where did I read that? So it's like I wanted to do an episode on that because I think it's cool and thinking about the ways that we preserve both tangible culture, but in a way that like that you can't put the pyramids in a library or in an archive, right? But also other sort of like intangible cultural heritage things. Like, how do you preserve that? And thinking about media, just like popular media, as a way of doing that, whether purposeful or not, I thought would be really cool to talk about. But then I just like couldn't find that citation of, hey, by the way, these are all like UNESCO World Heritage sites, and they're like put in this film for that purpose. So if anyone else remembers that and knows where I can find that information, I will do this episode. I just like couldn't find that citation when we wanted to do it. Like this was like last summer or something. It was, I think, before you moved out of Texas. But yeah, I would love to do that episode. But yeah. So if you know, please help me. Please send it my way because I want to do this episode.
Yeah, another problem of recording in the same room is Jay has the urge to turn around and talk to me, which is the opposite direction of his microphone. And I just watched him do it.
Fuck you.
It's very
Shut up.
cute to watch on to watch on camera.
We just need to put a second microphone over here. I guess that would be my microphone. There is like a guest wish list. A lot of them, I don't know how many I would like to do, but like the people who run the Anarchist Library online, because that's been going like for a long time, and they get like there are clearly a lot of people who are doing a good job of like getting newer essays up there, because a lot of like short essays and things like don't really get preserved. There's like Gale used to do this. The publisher would save these little like white papers and pamphlets and stuff and put them into these curated databases. So one that I noticed they did this a lot in was like opposing viewpoints in context. So it would take like an issue and give you like two different sides of it, usually like a pro and con. And
Great for your freshman 101 writing course when you have to do an opinion paper.
Yep.
Yeah. It kind of like does a lot of the research for you, but I noticed a lot of the stuff in there is stuff that wouldn't normally be in a library database. It's like, you know, like right-wing screed email blast kind of like Bircher Society stuff that normally wouldn't be in there, but they needed like a point counterpoint. So there's a lot of stuff from like I think you know, just political advocacy groups that would be considered, you know, not something you'd find in a normal database like that for like aimed at freshmen. But I think the idea was they're kind of curating the garbage for you. And so I like how the Anarchist Library is like finding these short little pieces and getting them up and saving them. Like the amount of stuff that I find on the Anarchist Library, like a lot of it's like clearly pirated, which is cool. But I would love to get the mods from Anarchist Library and talk to them about like how they've been running it for so long.
I think anybody can submit to it.
Yeah, but someone's got to be maintaining the infrastructure and tagging system and like stuff like that. And obviously there's going to be people who are like high contributors more than other people. But there's also the YouTuber Dan McClellan, which was an episode idea we came up with like last night.
Yeah, we were walking around and we were walking near the Christian Science Plaza in Boston.
Yeah, so we were talking about Mormons. and because it's very similar to the temple reflecting pool. But he does a lot of responses to people on TikTok doing like Christian apologetics and weird, like, there's like this whole weird industry of like, I don't know what you would call it, like graphology. It's like numerology, but with letters, where they're like, every word in here means something. And then they will look at like the Hebrew letter and then take it back to the Egyptian hieroglyph it came from. And like, this letter means door and this letter means that. Then they'll just come up with like a sentence based on like this line in like this one word or something. And then like come up with some weird, just connecting dots in a weird way. And he's like, that's just not how it works. The letter is just the first sound from the word for door. And that became the letter for that sound. It's a phonetic alphabet. So, but he does a lot of like responding to people, and he's also worked on like a lot of reference works where you can study like particularly like grammars, like lexicons, like how is this word used in Greek? How is this word used in Hebrew? Here's every single time that word has been used. Here's every single context the word could be used in.
Like he's a Bible scholar specifically. And so like thinking about like biblical Hebrew and biblical Greek and the way that like mistranslations and misunderstandings and like things out of context, the way that like people on TikTok and YouTube shorts like sort of like use that like miscontextual, misleading in like a propagandistic way. So one thing that kind of surprised me was like there's videos he does all the time where like people try to argue that like the Bible is against slavery, right? And Dan actually has several videos arguing against apologetics who are trying to like whitewash bad things out of the Bible that they don't agree with anymore. He's like, no, the Bible does support this actually in this way. But for practitioners of it, we have since decided that that no longer suits our society. And so we don't do that anymore. Like the way that he talks about the Bible as like both a like text he believes in, but like a text that also like exists within society and context is really fascinating. And so like I love a string of episodes of which this would be one was like info seeking behaviors of blank. Is like info seeking behaviors was something I studied for my master's thesis. And I just find it fascinating how it's like you can break down like a group of people by like an occupation or an identity or something and like what are their unique information seeking needs and habits. And so like both like Christians on the internet in like a short form video conspiracy theory apologetics space and like people who are Christians or even people just studying the Bible who are wanting to research these things and then having to wade through this sea of bullshit and how do you understand resources. And Justin was in talking about like the way that Primo shows or doesn't show different versions of biblical like reference texts or like different versions and stuff. Like I think all that's really cool. Like another like info seeking behaviors of blank that we wanted to do for a long time. I just need to reach back out to him and see if he still wants to do it. So we're friends with Dave Labor Lifts. He has, if folks are listeners of Horror Vanguard, he did the Bloody Bodybuilders in Hell, I think is what it's called, that episode. He teaches like Latin, but he also is like a bodybuilder and like specifically an anti-fascist. Like he got into bodybuilding for anti-fascist reason. Like he saw the way that people who had strength could stand up to assholes in bars and stuff. And so like got involved with like the IWW, like all of this stuff. So he's just like a cool anti-fascist bodybuilder. And one thing I thought would be a cool episode would be to have him on to talk about like the information seeking behaviors and like information literacy needs. I know info lit, but like needs of like people searching physical fitness or health stuff, especially like bodybuilding, right? Like there's like the bros forums and whatnot, but like there's all this like health and physical science info that's like outdated or contradicted or not agreed upon, like all of this stuff. And I thought it'd be cool to have him on to have an episode to talk about navigating that, like what that's like.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on YouTube that still watch, even though I don't really lift anymore. But I am fascinated about like the science lifters versus like the bro lifters because they're all on YouTube, right? Because they've all got something wrong with them because they all spend like hours in the gym every day. But they'll be like, this is the way to do your loading, and here's the way to do your diet, and here's the way to do your steroid injections. Because they're all like, yeah, we're all on steroids. Like, yeah, it's just like an arms race. It's gotten out of control, but we've all got like real body image issues. It's really funny. Like I showed Jay one where the guy was like, "Don't go on steroids when you're 16. Wait until you're 28." like,
Well,
kind of like, well, he was just like,
Responsible advice, actually, I think.
yeah. Like, in terms of harm reduction, good advice.
he's like, you're going to have trade offs, and he's like, here's why I'm on steroids, and it's because I'm crazy. And he's like, I don't recommend you do what I do, but it's like responsible drug use, basically. He's like, it's basically the same as a person being like, I use heroin. Here's how I keep myself from going into withdrawal. And like, because like there was this pamphlet from the 70s that I always think about, and I don't remember what it is. It's called like the Ethical Drug Users thing, manifesto. And I always think about it because the whole manifesto was like, use any drug you want. Don't inject. Your body has no way to stop an injection from doing something. Like you can take any drug you want, but like snort it or eat it or do any other, like smoke it. But like injection is too intense and it's too risky. And it's like, always convince people not to inject, convince them to do the drug any other way. It was just really interesting, like ethical drug use in a context where like the drug war in some ways was like way more intense because weed was like as illegal as heroin in like the 70s. But also everyone was smoking weed and was also on heroin. So I guess that,
And then in the 80s, they all went on to crack.
yeah. Now we have nice, safe DIY crack called meth.
Fentanyl.
Yeah. Oh, I found, I also started following some guy who is like a doctor who talks about like how cops are not having fentanyl issues. Because like there's some person I'm following who's like anti-cop, which is great. I always follow them on Blue Sky. And she was talking about this. There was this cop who works in like the evidence locker and he destroys drugs. And then he had a fentanyl overdose. And it's like, yeah, by shoving it up his nose. That's how it happened. It's like, yeah, well, he destroys them and it aerosolized. And then I watched this video. It's like fentanyl. They have been trying to aerosolize fentanyl in laboratories for years. It hates doing it. It does not aerosolize. Like they've been trying to create drugs of aerosolized fentanyl because it's a really useful drug, but the compound doesn't like to aerosolize. If it gets in your system, you did it. And even if it's like made for going on your skin, like those patches, like the Actic patches, that's like the brand name for fentanyl. I think if you also called fentanyl Actic, more people would be like, oh, my grandma was on that.
Right.
And more people would know about Actic because it's a very common, like if you are like opiate resistant, they give you these sticks of Actic and you just kind of put them in your tongue, under your tongue all day for like hours and hours. But it's the same drug. But yeah, this doctor made like this whole video about like, if you were exposed to fentanyl, you would not have these panic responses like all these cops are having because it's literally an anti-anxiety drug. You would calm down if you were exposed to fentanyl. If you were having this like panicked response, even if you were afraid because you had been like, you were afraid because you were exposed to fentanyl, the fentanyl itself, if it were affecting you, would calm you down. It would stop you from having the panic attack. So it's just very good. And it's really annoying seeing the news media again and again just parrot these cops being like, we gave them 9 doses of Narcan. And thank God they're still alive today. And I'm like, that dude had like a stroke and he's not been treated for the stroke. It was a different story where a guy was like just in a cruiser and just like blacked out. And they're like, oh my God, it was fentanyl. And it's like, no, he's got something else wrong with him, but I guess you're not going to find it today. But yeah, that's also now that I'm working with Ex Libris a lot, I do want to do an episode about Ex Libris is bad and look into the connections with like Unit 8200 of the IDF and see if we can dig up any people who worked at the same thing or like the universities that made Ex Libris and their culpability with scholasticide. And on that sort of like the all in sort of Israeli industry of AI, the use of it for surveillance, the use of it for suppressing information about Palestinians, the stealing of Palestinian artifacts that's going on in the West Bank and in Gaza, which has been going on since the war started, like since the latest post October 7th.
And we did that one episode about the Great Book Robbery or whatever a couple years ago, that documentary.
Yeah. Every time, I learn about like if I see someone who's like a librarian at some Israeli university, I always like look up where it was founded and when it was founded, and if they have a collection of like stolen Palestinian books, which is what the AP collection, abandoned property. Was that what they called it in that movie? The AP collection, AP call range. Yeah. So I think I need to find the zine about Ex Libris and then start from there. And
I
then
have it around here somewhere.
yeah, because Violet made that one, right?
No, I don't think it's Violet, but they were handing it out at the zine library, at the zine pavilion table. I think it was other folks who made it. Violet may have made one of them, but I don't think she made that one.
Okay. She made the AI one.
Shouts out to Violet if you're listening.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I will be at the Zine Pavilion at ALA, and I will be doing a show, hopefully, with some other library people who had conference or who had a presentation too hot for ALA. So we'll be doing ALA Underground. More information on that as it gets closer. But go by the Zine Pavilion or volunteer for the Zine Pavilion. That's my plug for the episode. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about? Sadie, any ideas for episodes you've never been able to do?
I've been trying to think of some, and I just don't have it.
I have like so many that were so like HVAC in libraries where
Or like the library website one.
oh yeah, the library website
Yeah.
one, why our library website's always bad, which is more just kind of explaining to non-library people why they're bad. I've kind of done this on other podcasts of like explaining, okay, the reason is imagine you had to manage like 90 different subscription services and also each of them had to have access to 30,000 people. And that's my job is
Yeah.
to make sure that all these subscription services work together. And that's why our websites suck. Also, the company that owns our website sucks.
It just sucks all the way down.
I think there's like other where it's like I don't know what the episode would be about, but there's like guests. I was like, it'd be cool to have them on, but I have no idea what they talk about because they're usually not a librarian. But it's like, oh, that person's doing the podcast rounds right now. I wonder if we could get them on, but what would they talk about? Like we got really lucky with like Josh Borman of Virtual Possible Worlds because of the Patmos connection with him. But it's like if we wanted to have him back on, what would he talk about? Right. Although I know he's doing the rounds again, it'd be cool to have him on. But like there's a lot of like cool journalists or podcasters or scholars where it's like I just don't know what like we could ask them what they might want to talk about, but like I know I love being like, well, how can we make this about information or whatever? But sometimes it's just like if there's not a topic there, but there's like loads of cool people where I'd love to have them on because
Yeah.
the two main goals of this podcast is to like do consciousness raising and also to meet cool people.
Yep.
So
Yeah. I'm like, who would top Chuck Tingle? Because I think I had.
Well, a lot of people.
Okay. Fair?
hey,
Legit?
The handsome feller.
Space Raptor Butts or God, what was it? He was just talking about it. He was just talking about it on Tumblr, how like he had a transcendent moment when he came up with like Space Butt Raptors title or something like that. And I'm like, okay, that lines up.
Yeah, there's so many people. We've also like had some guests where like we had an idea and then like the idea fell through or like the scheduling fell through and then I felt like the timing didn't work or they died because I was putting together an episode pitch for Steve Albini and then he died.
because like we know Jake and Steve went on Pod Damn, so it's like we could have had Steve Albini on.
I was putting together like the pitch idea and then I was going to like talk to people who had just had Steve on their podcast. There's more than one podcast he went on.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, like I was gonna like try Jake first and see like, hey, like, well, do you know his Gmail or whatever? Like his personal Gmail, how were you talking to him? Or just like cold email because that also works sometimes.
I would record Doctorow and Chuck Tingle.
Mm-hmm. I think I emailed Chuck twice or like DM'd him on Twitter and then it didn't work, so I emailed him and then it worked. But yeah, people are pretty generous with their time. Even though we have funding available for episodes, still like not a lot of money. So
Yeah. Yeah, because there's been, like, several like, a lot of things where just scheduling didn't work out, or by the time it would have worked out, like, the time has passed. Like, we were gonna have Kim Kelly on, and then something in the schedule, like, fell through, and now she's, like, doing the rounds. Now it's like she's very busy doing stuff, so it's like, I don't know when we might have Kim back on again.
I would
That would be
I would
cool.
love to have Kim Kelly on.
Yeah.
We're reading Fight Like Hell for my union book club, so I'm
Hell
like,
yeah, let's
"Hell
fucking go.
yeah."
all right, we'll reevaluate the episode. But yeah, it was going to be around like the episode was going to be around like a specific union thing that was happening at in Philly while ALA was happening, and all three of us were in Philly at that time. And me and Jay were at like one of the actions for a different union in which librarians were crossing the picket line to go into their stupid hotel because they couldn't wait 30 minutes to not cross the picket line, literally walking through the people marching. Like there was
Yeah.
another open door.
Shame on you if you did that. If you're listening and you crossed that picket line at ALA 2025, you should feel ashamed of yourself. Well, I'm not going to sugarcoat that. You should feel ashamed of yourself.
Yeah. They had signs. You could have grabbed a sign and joined the picket. There were a lot of library workers there. They made signs, library workers support hotel workers. And you could have just grabbed a sign and marched with us for 30, 45 minutes. It's, the least you can do. You were literally staying in that hotel. It was your hotel that was like the picket ad. You were just like walking through it. Like, what is wrong with you? And of course, the police were there to intimidate them too, which was really annoying. There's this pig standing there with like his stupid body camera pointed at us the whole time. It was very annoying. But they kept him on the other side of the street. Most of them. There were two that came over and stood there to capture faces, I'm sure. But it was very annoying. But that was what we were going to talk to Kim about, and then it didn't work. We have to reevaluate the pitch or the episode idea. But that was what we were going to talk about mostly, was just shitting on the people who were crossing the picket line.
The one thing you don't do.
People weren't raised right.
Yeah, like who fucking raised you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's an episode.
Yeah, we did one in our new place. Hooray.
Yay.
All right. Good night.